We've looked at one passage. I don't want to go through the questions that are asking you for the story, because people not studying Macbeth will feel, this is practicing too much of Macbeth. But I'd like to practice one of the questions, which is, what does an extract show you about a character? So if we come back to this passage, the question is, what does this particular passage show you about the character of Banquo? So you've got two things to look at, which is this section here and this section here. So say to yourself, what do we see about how he's interacting with the witches? I think what's really important here is that he is neither terrified by them, nor is he desperate to get supernatural knowledge. The word I used before the break was he is calm. Do you know the word detached? Detached is when you're separated from something. So yes, he's curious about them, but he's detached from them. It suggests that he has a certain assurance in himself when he deals with the supernatural. The supernatural can be very frightening. We can be really scared when we don't understand, and we think that those supernatural creatures have power that can frighten us. But Banquo is so confident in himself that he does not feel that fear. So we're going to add the word confident to this. And then the next thing is, why would you beg from these supernatural creatures? This would, obviously in context of the play, and I'm coming at it from the play, would suggest that there's something you want from them. You want them to use their power to benefit you. So greed or ambition. So he is not greedy. He is not ambitious. So he doesn't want the supernatural power that they have. Now, I'm not using ambitious in the way that we're all ambitious. We are using the opportunity given to us by liberty to improve our understanding, our knowledge, our ability to answer questions in exams. That is ambition. I'm talking about this kind of illegal, unlawful ambition that we get in this play, that Macbeth has. So he doesn't have that. So there's no wickedness in him. So he's neither terrified nor desirous of trying to win their approval and get them to help him. So fundamentally, we see that Banquo is basically a good man. He's a decent, upright, trustworthy man. So that kind of question is important. And then you get this kind of question. The question says, the witches are responsible for Macbeth's actions after their first meeting with him. Discuss. So I really want to stop and talk about this kind of discuss question. Now you get this if you are home language or if you are FAL. What do you have to do with this question? First of all, you have to have a viewpoint. You have to have a main argument, which is what we call a thesis statement. Now, FAL students, you get this in this 3-mark discuss question, and you get it twice. So you get it as 6 marks out of 35. You cannot afford to fall down on that question. Home language, you usually get it in that 4-mark comparative question at the end of the 25-mark question. And you get it in the lit essay, which is 25 marks. Now, FAL, you no longer write the lit essay. It was in FAL, it's gone. But home language, it sits there and it causes problems, but it shouldn't. So you need a thesis statement, which is an overall argument. What is your point? So in a 3-mark or a 4-mark question, you make your point and then you support it with evidence from the play, with facts, with details from the play or the novel. Now, please, you have to get the details right. If you get the details wrong, obviously your whole argument is going to be unsupported, even if the argument is correct, if you don't have the evidence. Now remember, whether you're home language or FAL, you can disagree with the examiner. So what's the examiner said? The witches are responsible for Macbeth's actions. I would hope that you would immediately say, nah, absolutely not. Macbeth's responsible for his own actions. Dorian Gray, are we going to blame Lord Henry for what happens? No, makes his own choices. Hamlet, are we going to blame fate for what happens to Hamlet? Hamlet certainly feels that he's been born into a situation where he has a responsibility to put it right. He says, "O cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right." So he has a sense of responsibility or duty, but he makes a choice. So you hear, if you said Hamlet is not responsible for his actions, I need you to say, no, actually he is. Proctor is not responsible for his actions. Abigail's not responsible for her actions. Nonsense, of course they are. You can weigh it up. You can say yes and no. So remember, that is allowed. So that is your counter argument. So you can argue, which is where you agree or you disagree with the topic. That's fine. But you can also do a counter argument. So this is where you say up to a point. So this is where you agree and disagree, not or and disagree. You can do that. Now, in a 3-mark question, you need to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to kind of do 2 marks agreeing and 1 mark disagreeing, if that's what you want to do. So FAL students, your 3-mark question, home language students, your 4-mark question. Let's say you've written just an agree or just a disagree, and you look at it and you think, but I don't think I'm going to get 3 marks for this. I don't know if I'm going to get 4 marks for this. Then check if there's a counter argument. So yes, I agree because of blah, but I disagree because of blah. You can do that. And if that will help you get the total number of marks, then do that. But you don't have to. So this one, the witches are responsible for Macbeth's actions after their first meeting with him. No. Discuss your view. I would absolutely disagree. The witches tempt Macbeth. They hold it like bait. But Macbeth makes his own choices. And it's actually much easier in Macbeth than in some other texts because the witches never tell him to kill Duncan, not once. So he decides, I'm going to kill Duncan in order to make those prophecies come true. And then later in the play, he acts to make the prophecies not come true. So he's always acting. When he wants the prophecies, he acts to try to achieve that. It's not as though the prophecies are there and he sees them as fact. He then sees the prophecy and says, okay, I don't want this to happen, so I'll do X, Y, Z to stop it from happening. The literature essay for home language students. There are 2 essays. There's the mini poetry essay and there's the long 25-mark essay. The mini poetry essay. Basically, just go with whatever they give you as a topic. Make that your argument, agree, disagree, and just write it. On the whole, I think agree with it. Just say, yes, here's my topic. I'm just giving you the evidence. Where did I put evidence? Here. So in the mini poetry essay, you take the topic as your point of view, and you just show why you're agreeing with that topic. This is the mini poetry essay out of 10. This lit essay out of 25 is more challenging and demands more. So if there are home language students who want me to deal with that in more detail, please won't you send in your questions. In the meantime, I want to go back to Macbeth. So is this my, yeah, here we go. This is my second passage. Right. Macduff. Stands Scotland where it did. What does that mean? Basically, what's going on in Scotland and has anything changed? Alas, poor country. What is his tone? Sorrow, regret, almost afraid to know itself. It cannot be called our mother, but our grave. Your country is meant to be your mother. It's meant to be the source of life. It's meant to be a creative force. It gives birth to people and creatures and things. Scotland isn't. Scotland is the place where you are buried, where nothing, but who knows nothing, is once seen to smile. Okay. If you're finding the lines tricky, let us say you're sitting in your paper 2. You look at the text and you think, whoa, I don't remember this. Then you know enough from sitting in class, from having your lessons, from having had lessons on a platform like this. Thanks once again to Liberty for giving us this platform. You know enough to work something out. So you look at the lines and you say, okay, where nothing but who knows nothing is once seen to smile. So people who smile are whom? They must be people who know nothing. So if you know anything, you do not smile in Scotland. Why not? Because people are sighing and groaning and shrieking. And do we know those words? Do we know what rend is? To sigh. You let the air out. You can sigh with relief, ecstasy, love, passion, anger, irritation. You can sigh with all sorts of emotions. Groan. Listen to groan. It's an onomatopoeic word. Groan. You can hear. Shriek. Onomatopoeic word. Shriek. I'd like to shriek, but I could blow all the levels here. That rend the air. Rend is to rip or to tear. These are made and they're not marked. What does marked mean? Pay attention. Why do people not pay attention to these terrible sounds that are happening in Scotland? Because violent sorrow seems a modern ecstasy. Violent sorrow just seems common. The dead man's knell. Knell. What is a knell? It is a death bell. It's a funeral bell. Is there scarce asked for who? Scarce means hardly at all. So you hear the doing, doing of the funeral bell. Nobody even says who's dead. Why? Because that bell doesn't stop ringing. And good men's lives expire before the flowers in their caps dying or ere they sicken. So you know a flower. If you put it in your cap, there's my hat. I put it in my hat. It dies very quickly. Here he says these flowers die even before they kind of got sick enough to die. O relation too nice and yet too true, too precise and yet true. This is Macduff. Malcolm asks, what's the newest grief? So what's the latest grief, sorrow, pain? That of an hour's age doth hiss the speaker, each minute teems a new one. He says, I can hardly tell you what the newest thing is because we're hearing it. And maybe you feel here it's a bit like some of the statistics. for the COVID. When we look at countries like Brazil and United States, those figures seem to be changing minutely, by the minute. And Macduff asks, how does my wife? Now, we know the answer to this. How do we know that? Because we studied the play. So, why does Ross say this? So if you don't know the play, how does my wife? Why, well, she's fine. But we know she's not fine. We know she's dead. She's been brutally murdered. So you are now the actor playing Ross. So the actor playing Macduff says, how does my wife? And you turn to the director and you say to him, how do you want me to deliver this line? I've got to say, why? Well. How am I saying it? So the director says, well, try it in different ways. So maybe, how does my wife? Why, well. So a little pause, and then, why, well, very quickly. Why? Because he knows she's not well, but it's kind of, he doesn't know how to answer. Obviously, he's been preparing himself for this question, but maybe it came more suddenly than he expected. All right, let's try it again. How does my wife? Why, well. So I could pause before it, and I could pause in the middle. Why? Because he's going, oh my gosh, what do I say now? How do I deliver this news? How do I break the news to him? So pause, why, pause, well, as his mind is racing, how do I tell him? All right, let's try it a different way. How does my wife? Why, well. So pause before, quite quickly, or why, well. So what, kind of getting the words out quite. Do you understand? You and the director and the actor have got to decide on what is best. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? How is that coming out? So he asks about his children. And Ross says, well, too, you're going to have the same discussion. But look, you're going, why well? Well, too. So Macduff says, the tyrant has not battered at their peace. The tyrant we know is Macbeth. And he says, no. They were well at peace when I did leave them. So obviously this is very ambiguous. They were well at peace because they're dead. Now be careful of this word. Be not a niggard of your speech. It is spelt N-I-G-G-A-R. And it's niggard or niggardly. It's an old word we don't use a lot anymore, but please spell it correctly. It's not the N word, niggard. What it means is, why aren't you saying more? Why are your answers so little? Please give me more information. That's what it means. So be very careful. Don't look at that word and think, gosh, I know this word and it's a word that nobody should use. No. Wrong word. Be not a niggard of your speech. How goes it? So he forces him here into answering. Okay, so everybody, what am I trying to show you? How to study for paper 2. And it really means knowing your text very well. If you haven't read it once, would you please go and read your text? If you've read it once, could you read it a second, third, fourth, fifth time? You need to know it really, really well. I was talking about what students have said to me after prelims. I've had students come out of prelims saying, we didn't even recognize one of those extracts. We knew one. We didn't know the other. Now, they do tell you where it comes from. They'll put Act 4 or Chapter 5. But if you don't know where that fits in the text, you're going to have real trouble answering it. So read your texts. Check the vocab. One of the biggest blocks is vocab. And then say to yourself, do I understand what is going on? Do I know where it fits into the story? Can I tell the story and explain what comes beforehand? Because that's what they mean when they say put it in context these days. what comes beforehand? And do I have an understanding of character? And we didn't even really get to theme.